All right, let's start off. Could you introduce yourself and tell us your role on Assassin's Creed Valhalla?
Yeah, hello, I'm Darby McDevitt, and I'm the narrative director of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, this
Hey,
game.
in the background, right there.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining me once again. I really appreciate that. First off, I want to ask how you're feeling at this stage of development, almost 1 month away from launch. This thing's been in the works for years.
Yeah. Well, I feel really good. It's been a very long journey. It's been our own saga of sorts. And it started a long time ago with just dreaming up the basics of the idea, taking a big, nice, long press trip, or not a press trip, a fact-finding trip, a research trip to Norway, and it ends with having this amazing game in our hands with lots of stories, lots of characters. Obviously, my part is done. We're just obviously packaging the game up, fixing it up, and sending it out, and so it feels really good to just play it and experience these stories as we dreamed them up 2 years ago.
Awesome.
The story dreaming happened about 2 years ago.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's great to kind of see the whole thing come together. There's a real evolution that I saw from my first experience, my 1st session to this one. I mean, you can really tell.
Okay, cool.
So while I was exploring this world, I found some really exciting things. First off, under Leicester, I found 2 things under this city. First off, I found an old forgotten bureau of the Hidden Ones with a codex page and a Hidden Ones armor piece. Can you tell us more about this kind of location? Will these discoveries be common in Valhalla if we look for them?
Yeah. There's definitely more than one. I don't know if the build that you had actually had a quest to find those codex pages, but early in the game there's a quest to find all those codex pages, and you found one of them. It's definitely a throwback to an older era of Assassin's Creed. What we're trying to do with these Hidden Ones bureaus is really, like I think we talked about it the last time we talked, which was fill the world with the sediment of history. This is one of those places. I don't know if you read all the notes and things that were around. There's other things in there besides what you just described. You can spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it for people. But I did it at the narrative team. We did a deep dive on what were the Hidden Ones under the Roman Empire. How did they spread? They built bureaus. They operated in England. They had a lot of failures in England. And eventually they left England for reasons that you'll find out if you find all of the bureaus. It tells a little story. It tells a kind of a world story that you can follow, in the distant past, so you can piece it all together. And that's just one of many Hidden One bureaus that you'll find. And each one of them has a bit of just a couple nuggets of history that would have been happening at that time in that place. We did a lot of research about what was happening. There's actually the Emperor Constantine the Great was actually born in York. Even though he's known as the guy that started Constantinople, he was born up in York.
Okay.
Or no, it's either that or he became emperor in York. Now that I might be mixing it up, but there's quite a few emperors that over the 400 years that the Romans were in England, there's quite a few emperors that went there personally to do things, to throw their weight around. So we wanted to depict some of that.
That's awesome. I noticed when I first went into the area that it was called Ratay Bureau.
Yeah, that's the original name for Leicester, which is now Leicestershire, or the town of Leicester.
Awesome. Yeah, there was a lot of detail in there. I did notice that extra note. It was jammed up against a map.
Stabbed into a map.
Stabbed into a map. Exactly. But yeah, I can't wait to explore more of these underground locations. It seems like there's a lot hidden underneath the surface.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I found another thing underneath Leicester. An old woman living in the sewers asked me to deliver her viper eggs so that she could break wind so badly that it would make the people above her sick. So I have to ask, did you write this? Are you responsible for this?
I did not write that one.
Okay.
I don't want. I'll find the party responsible and have them tweet at you. But no, that wasn't me. That was a world event. and we obviously did a huge brainstorm at some point on all the different world events that we wanted, and then we had a whole team sort of like make them happen, and actually some of them I deliberately I would do a cursory glance at them, but I was like, I don't want to see how they come across because I want to find them myself. So yeah, I found that one too, and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that one was really funny. Can we expect like a similar tone, some more silly world events compared to some
the world
ones?
events are definitely where we let loose a bit in terms of surrealism and strangeness. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I can't wait to see who else is going to break wind, personally.
Yeah.
I got to experience the settlement for the first time in this demo. I walked around it for about an hour because it was...
You started there in this demo, right? Yeah.
I started there in the demo, and it told me that I could go talk to Randvi, but I had to talk to everyone. There's so many people, so many notes to read, so many things to interact with. I was really blown away by the detail. We haven't had a home base quite as robust as Ravensthorpe, I feel like. So can you explain the motivation behind choosing a home base for Eivor's story and share any more details about how it relates to the narrative?
Yeah, well, I think obviously starting to research Vikings, in the initial stages, when you say Vikings, you think, oh, that's a cool archetype. That's a cool, it's like pirates or ninjas. You could just go be a Viking. But of course, you want a reason to play a Viking, and you also want a reason to be not the antagonist, right? If you were to play a game where you were the stereotypical Viking, you just like run in somewhere, you raid, kill, and go back home and dole out your riches. With England and that time period, and especially the expulsion of all the Norse from Norway after Harald Fairhair takes over, there was this evolution of the Viking idea, which is that they're actually settlers and explorers too, and a lot of them did go to England to settle. It wasn't always particularly friendly, as you probably saw in the story aspect of your demo, but there was this desire to we're coming here and we need to find somewhere to live because we can't live back there, and we're going to do it in any way we can. So once we hit on that idea and started talking about that idea, it made sense to have a settlement, to build the settlement, to make you participate as a player in that settling of England, not just for cosmetic reasons or whatever, but really to try to make stories and to tell stories that make you care about these people, to make sure that you're raiding in the world and all your exploring has a purpose, where it's not just personally you upgrading your weapons to be the most badass, but that you dump all this exploration into something that matters. And hopefully as the settlement evolves and gets bigger and you come into contact with more people from England, the old ideas of just coming in, raiding and settling transform into a more complex idea of no, we got to live with these people. We're not, because the Vikings weren't conquerors in the same way that like the Nazis, invading France or Poland or whatever. The Vikings came over and just plopped themselves down and said, we're living here. Sorry if that upsets you, but we want to live here. But they didn't really try to, turn people into them, and they integrated very fast, very quickly. So we always hesitate to call this a game of conquest. Sometimes we say it's a game of trying to pacify England, but it really is about setting up a home and saying we're not going anywhere, so let's figure out a way to deal with that. So I think as you get into this back half of our game, you'll find the territory arcs start to transform into something more into building friendships, building alliances, and not as much to the conquest stuff. But we put you right in the middle of a Viking fantasy story in this one. So
Gotcha.
That's at the start. This is very early in the game what you played.
Okay. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned sort of how the perception of what they're doing changes. The alliance map is an interesting mechanic that reminds me a lot of the war table in Dragon Age. I know you guys kind of mentioned an inspiration, from Skyhold in that game. and Inquisition. But it's like you make a pledge, you choose a territory, and you commit to making an alliance. It feels very declaratory, like you're planting a flag and kind of defining the next several hours of your experience. My question is, once you choose that, is that the only path that you can go down until you resolve that arc?
No, you can actually go back to her and say, you know what, I'm halfway through this one. I want to switch to another one. We actually find that nobody does because in tests, it's possible to do it. We had to make sure that it's possible to do it for testing reasons, but we found that 99.9% of people just don't do that because the stories are compelling enough and you want to see them to the end. It's hard to imagine a person, stopping in the middle and going back and like, let's see what the other one is, because I think we did a great job with the stories pulling you along, right? I've mentioned elsewhere that we really, my first, my first impulse was to get the writers and the designers to all craft stories around a 5-act structure. And for many months, we actually would just work on this 1-page document that had all 5 acts. And we always made sure that each act was really compelling and then ended with something that pulled you into the next act. And I think we were really successful in that. I think the play tests we have speak for themselves. Like nobody quits an arc. They just want to see it through in it because it's great.
That's awesome. I definitely felt a momentum between those. And then it's always, where are we moving next, Eivor? Meet me at the forward camp, connect with the Sons of Ragnar. And so I definitely felt what you're talking about.
Yeah, and hopefully there's questions always in your mind. Like, you're building what's Ivarr going to do? Is he a little off his rocker? Hopefully there's questions like spinning plates always, pulling you forward. And yeah.
Right. Ivarr is a very interesting character. I've got a specific question about them in a second here. So back to the alliance map. So it seems like you're always pledging to find a solution. Can you ever pledge to just straight up attack a territory?
No, the stories are always like Randvi is always like, my scouts have found a specific kind of way to get this territory on our side. So let's go down that path. And because of this arc is let's go ally with the Sons of Ragnar. They're obviously attacking Burgred specifically, and they're putting their own king in place. But your pledge is like, hey, I want these guys on my side, so that our clans are, have an alliance and are friendly, because that's going to have some resonance down the road.
Gotcha. And looking into the future at the very end of my demo, I noticed that Sigurd came out and said, I'm writing to Oxenfordshire.
Oxenfordshire, yeah.
There we go.
which is now Oxford. It's Oxfordshire.
There we go. Yeah. And he's like, I'm there to forge an alliance. It seems like is that a familiar thing for us? Is it going to be like Sigurd goes out, he starts to broker these relationships, and then we kind of meet him in the middle?
That would be spoiling too much, but definitely in those early stages, you and Sigurd are going off to find alliances. Yeah. Okay. And that the alliance thing, that's kind of the reason for every territory arc, but the actual stories of the territory arc start to morph quite drastically into very interesting things. But in the early stages, it's just like, we're alone here in England. Let's just go find some friends and make alliances with them. But it starts to get more complex as the further you go out.
Awesome. So speaking of Sigurd, family has always been at the core of Assassin's Creed that I can remember. Throughout the demo, I saw him at Eivor's side pretty much at all times. And near the end, I said he's heading to Oxford. What can you tell us about Eivor's relationship with Sigurd? And if possible, could you elaborate on the dark side that was mentioned in your interview?
Can't elaborate on the dark side.
Understood.
So Sigurd is somebody who you see within the first few minutes of starting this game, and we paint a picture of a bond that goes very deep. Sigurd's older and has acted as a mentor to Eivor for quite a while. And so obviously they're together in Norway at the beginning of the game. We establish even more of their relationship there. And as you saw in our story trailer, Sigurd makes this big pitch for let's go to England, because stuff has happened in Norway that's just made them, feel that England's a better prospect. And Eivor's like, I'm right there with you. Things will happen, though, over the course of the game that challenge that I'm always on your side, Sigurd. But to go into that would spoil some surprises.
Okay, we'll keep those for people.
Yeah.
At the very beginning of the demo, I was presented with the option between the male and female streams in the Animus, but a third option was there in the middle that I didn't have last time. Can you explain to us what this is, how it works, and how it might affect our experience?
So what did you choose?
I chose the middle one. I was just too curious.
You can say what it is, right? Or are we not allowed to show that?
I think we are. I didn't get any specific instructions not to.
No. So it's yes. So the middle option is you just want me to say it.
Yes.
So there's chooses female Eivor, chooses male Eivor, and then there is let the Animus decide. And for story reasons, as I've always said, both male and female Eivor are canon in this game from the perspective of Assassin's Creed lore and everything. So choosing one or the other is viable. When you get to the end of our game and you've taken everything in, we hope that the narrative will have given you enough. I don't want to say breadcrumbs, because breadcrumbs are very small. Has heaped enough onto your plate to make you realize what has actually been going on this whole game. Let the Animus decide is basically the default choice, which is our game will switch from between male and female, depending on the needs of the story. So, I hate to say it's a sort of a canon option, but it's the option that will, let's say, get you to the clearest understanding of what's really going on, if you want. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But it's going to take a while. I don't want people playing the game thinking they pull it up and in 3 seconds they go, oh, that's why they're both canon. It's gonna that's part of the journey.
Okay.
And hopefully it'll be ripe for a lot of discussions on forums and and I think it will also lead to lots of very cool fan art.
Oh, I'm excited to see that. So when these, you may not even be able to answer this, when these switches happen, is it obvious? Like, is the game telling me this switch is happening? Obviously, you said the reasoning is going to be explained over the course, but do they just happen instantly from cutscene to cutscene, or is it very defined?
I think it's pretty defined. I mean, it's very defined, and you'll know. I mean, obviously, it'll be obvious because you'll be playing as female, and then suddenly you'll be male. Right. Not suddenly, but there are transitions. But yeah, I mean, the worst that could happen is that you forget you chose that option, and you play a certain time, and you go, "Hey, what just happened?" But I think we've done a decent enough job to make sure that the aha.
Okay, awesome. And to note, during my experience, there was no switching, and that's because I was early on. As far as I can tell. I did want to say that during the first session, I played only as the male, but this time I chose the middle option, and it was entirely female. And I was just blown away by the performance of Cecilie Stenspil.
I mean, she's awesome.
Yeah, she really sells her lines. I started to feel that connection with her as the protagonist. Really, all of the performances were awesome. What's the process like of writing these characters and then seeing the voice actors bring them to life?
Oh, I mean, the process of writing is just, me and Alain Marseca were the first writers on this game before we brought on any others, and we spent a lot of time just writing and talking, writing practice scripts, figuring out what the tone is. And then all the other writers come on board, and they all write their scripts. This particular story you played was written by Chris Grilly. And then we talk about it, and we edit, and we edit, and we edit. We go over it, and we make sure that it has the voice that we want. and then we ship it off to the voice directors, and we talk with the actors. Cecilie was cool because we found Magnus early. He's our male Eivor, and we found him early. We loved him, but we hadn't found the female Eivor yet. And then she and Magnus actually gave us her name as this really well-known voice actress in Denmark, and she auditioned on her balcony on an iPhone, and even from Denmark. And even from that, we could hear the weight and gravel in her voice, the power in her voice. And we're just like, there is no question that she is our Eivor. So we were so happy with her. And she did a fantastic job. So, of course, the actors all came here. Magnus, Cecilie, a number of other actors, they came here. So we would get a chance to sit in a room with them, go over scripts, and talk about these things. The cool thing for them too is that we always lock the scripts in arcs, so they got to see a full story from beginning to end, which is very unusual in games, because usually games only have one long story, like say Black Flag, right? And so those actors would be recording it in bits and pieces depending on what was finished, and they wouldn't get to see the whole story all at once. But they got to read the full script. Here's the Leicestershire arc. Okay, I see the beginning, middle, and end. And that was much more fun for them, I think. They got to really dig into it. So, yeah.
Yeah, they were both awesome after experiencing both of those. So I wanted to actually bounce back to the story trailer. We met Basim, sort of, who seems to play a pivotal role in bringing Eivor into this larger conflict. Can you give us any more details about this character, Basim, what kind of person he is, and what we should expect from this hidden one from Constantinople?
No. Basim, because Basim's not in your demo.
Right, that's true.
You saw nothing of Basim, right?
I did not.
Right before your demo starts, he actually heads out to go do something else. But you did explore the settlement.
I did.
Yes. So you met some other people.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you keeping that a secret? Yeah.
I need to go back and review my gameplay, honestly, because I played so much.
Gotcha. But yeah, Basim, he actually right before you head off to Leicester, if you're playing normally, he has actually just left to go do something else, and so he is not appearing in your demo. But you will see him shortly after, I guess, when you play the normal game. But no, there's not a whole lot I can go into. I don't want to over expose.
Understood. Yeah, that's I'm really excited to learn about that. I did notice a little hidden ones sort of headquarters within my settlement. So yeah, let's see. Also within that story trailer, eagle-eyed fans notice that the cult of Mithras appears in that trailer.
Yeah.
As Basim is describing the Order of Ancients to Eivor. Can you tell us anything about this cult? Any hints that we can get from that?
Yeah, I mean, historically, the cult of Mithras was mostly a soldier cult, like a Roman soldier's religion. I think it was exclusively male. It was very mysterious. But it came up around the same time Christianity came up, and Christianity just sort of devoured it. And the cult of Mithras was, I think, very esoteric, and we don't have any real texts from them. We have a few little snippets of what they are. How should I say? Because the cult of Mithras is actually tied to the same era that the Hidden Ones bureaus are. And tied with the Order of the Ancients. And they're spaces that the Order of the Ancients uses. But we are actually also quite far past the era of the Mithraic temples as well. So it's not quite as cut and dry that the cult of Mithras is the Order of the Ancients. That's not. It's one subsumes the other, I think I'd say.
Gotcha.
The Order of the Ancients is all-consuming in terms of this ancient past.
Right. I'm really interested to explore and find. Are we going to find those? Is fresco the right word? Those kind of stonework things underneath ground?
You mean the actual statue of Mithras and the
Yes.
bowl and the yeah? I mean, I think it's a statue actually.
Okay.
It's a 3D. You can almost walk around it.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a few Mithraic temples in England as well, but again, they are almost more ancient history rather than present history.
Okay.
But the Order of the Ancients actually still uses them because they are, let's say, the Mithras, the whole cult of Mithras. Mithras as a god is all part of what the Order of Ancients. It's their bread and butter, you know. The Order of the Ancients basically loves the Isu. That's what's in the name. The Order of the Ancients is this order that worships the Isu as a superior, but long since gone, species of creature. How do I say that? Humanoid? I don't know. That sounds weird. And so Mithras would be one of those.
Okay. That's fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the demo.
Yes.
Because I got to play.
You spent 10 minutes on a trailer.
I know. I had to. I got to meet the Sons of Ragnar.
Yes.
Faction. Ivarr and Ubba. Is that how you say his name?
Ubba or
Ubba.
Ubba or Ubba.
Okay.
They usually say Ubba.
Cool. I didn't get to meet Halfdan, but the dynamic between the two that I did get to meet is very interesting. They seem to have the same goal, but go about it in different ways, I would say.
Yeah.
How did you settle on the personalities of these characters? Because they're very distinct and kind of how they interact with Eivor in the main plot.
Well, I think we took some cues from history with a guy who has a nickname, the Boneless. You know, you always you wonder what's behind that name. We interpreted it one way; other people interpreted it other ways. Ubba was done very well in the show The Last Kingdom, but we didn't want to copy that. We wanted our own Ubba. So yeah, there's that, and then Halfdan you didn't meet because he's the sort of the leader of Northumbria. There's a puppet king up there, but he's technically the leader of Halfdan. He's his own sort of larger than life character. I love him, and I can't wait for people to meet him. So it wasn't too difficult. I think it's not too difficult to come up with three brothers who are all quite different, and even as Ivarr implies that they don't have the same mother. At some point in your arc, that he's like, we both have the same father, but his mom was a cow. So yeah, we just had fun. You know, the writers. I think our idea for Ivarr was fading rock star. He's already been fighting wars for 10, 15 years. He's probably pushing 40. But he's still got that fire of wanting to be a glorious. He wants to go down in flames, or he wants to kill everybody or go down in flames. I don't know. Something like that. So he pulls a couple weird fast ones in the territory that you said.
He sure does. Yeah, he definitely doesn't like Tana.
Yeah,
that was really funny. And then the stunt he pulls on Burgred's wife. Was great too.
Yeah,
Adelswith. Yes.
Yeah.
Just very colorful. I loved the explanation of his nickname. That was really fun. And also just to see him sit Eivor down and just be like, we're friends now. That was awesome. Okay, let's see. I was going to ask you if the relationship between like Eivor and their clan and the Sons could ever go sour, but I think you kind of already answered that. It's kind of like,
well, I won't say one way or the other, but that's not the last you've seen of all the brothers. Both Ivarr and Ubba still, there's much more to come.
Gotcha.
And Halfdan, of course, you haven't met. With Halfdan, we do a lot of, everyone talks about Halfdan throughout the game. He's kind of like in the Third Man, Harry Lime, where everyone talks about him, but he doesn't appear until the last act. But you've been hearing about him so much that you've got expectations, and he doesn't disappoint. But yeah, they all the Sons of Ragnar still have a lot of story to go.
Okay. Did we see Halfdan in the trailer? He was standing next to
He is in the
Ubba.
trailer, yeah. You can do it by process of elimination. Exactly. He's the one standing next to Ubba, yeah.
Awesome. He does look very kingly.
Yeah. He's menacing. He's the most menacing of them all, I think.
Okay. So during the demo, maybe a smaller character, maybe not. I met Ceolbert, the son of Ceolwulf, who we installed as King of Mercia. At the very end, his dad chose to send him off with, I think, our clan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we gonna see Ceolbert again? Is he kind of like a recruit, like Fenrir was in the last demo?
He's not a recruit, but he's a recurring character. Yeah. He's because your settlement is kind of firmly in Mercia, right? It's a dead center of Mercia. So now that Ceolwulf is king, and he's a historical character, Ceolwulf, Burgred, Ivarr, Ubba, all historical characters. Ceolbert is not a historical character, but they did a funny thing back in those days where they had a habit, the Saxons had a habit of naming all their male heirs the same letter as the dad. So Ceolbert, Ceolwulf, Ceolburger, I don't know. Like it would be, and they would call that the C dynasty. And then like Alfred, all his family is AE. So Alfred, Ethelwulf, Ethelstan, all that, his great-grandsons, Ethelstan, all that. So that's the A dynasty, etc. And that's very common for Saxons. But Ceolwulf is not a historical character. We wanted to give Ceolwulf we wanted to basically say Ceolwulf has now got power, and Eivor's presence there has a personal impact on him, not just like, hey, you're the king now, goodbye. Ceolbert comes back, lives with you for a while, and that story goes off in its own direction at some point too. Did you complete the story arc and then come back and turn it in with Randvi?
I did.
Okay, so Ceolbert should have been there. Was he standing in the?
Oh, you know what? I think I just finished it before the end of my time, so I didn't.
Yeah,
see him.
I think I'm pretty sure he.
No! I just remembered. You're right. He was there. Yeah, he's standing in the settlement.
Yeah, and he's just asking Randvi questions, and so he'll hang out with Randvi. Randvi's going to be he has an internship with Randvi.
Yeah, Randvi is an interesting character. Is she our war council, our war chief?
Sort of, yeah. I would say like war chief. As Sigurd's wife, she's very tied into the prosperity of the clan. She also has scouts that she sends out early, and you sometimes meet them. They come into the story every so often. So she's always gathering up information, and then after you do a couple arcs, you'll come back and you'll find some new arcs on the, so we trip you forward slowly. Do these 2 arcs, a new couple will appear, and in that way we trickle the content. There's always a couple things for you to do, but it will still push forward in a somewhat linear fashion, so you feel time passing in the appropriate way.
Gotcha. I wanted to ask about the part of the quest where I can go to Templar or
yeah.
There we go. Or Leicester. I chose Leicester. How different would my experience have been if I chose Templar?
Not too different. I mean, there's different dialogue where Eivor will tell the brothers, here's what we found back there. Here's what because in Leicester you don't find anything except Ivarr getting Ceolbert into danger.
Right.
And it's in Templar Order that you find Burgred's wife Ethelswith. So you can do them in any order because you're looking for the king. But there's some scenes are different. And also in Leicester, there's 2 different places to go. If you find Ceolbert right away, you might not go to the other place, but there's some really cool stuff in the other place. So I don't know did you go to the church first or the bathhouse?
I went to the church first.
Okay, so you found some good stuff.
I did.
Some good loot. And then, if you go to the bathhouse first, the church objective will just go away.
Okay.
And you might have to find that on your own. Otherwise, because Ivarr will always cause problems. And,
Yeah, it was fun to see Ceolbert kind of go out on his own and kind of see the evolution of his character. He wants to kind of prove himself, but he's young.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
And
was
then
awesome.
there was a choice at the end, which we don't want to spoil too much, but there is a choice to make at the end. I'm curious which choice you made, spare or kill.
Oh, I killed.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, I
Well, I think like we did last time, I'm not going to tell you what happens if you spare, but if you spare, it's very cool.
okay.
And so
Yeah,
you're going to have to find out from other people.
I know. I think I chose to spare Ruid in the
Yeah.
last, and that almost felt more cruel, and so I wanted to choose the other option. I know they're
Yeah. Yeah.
different
And
dynamics.
that's totally legit. That's totally legit. But
Yeah.
it'll be fun to see what other people do.
I know. I'm excited to see that floating around on the internet. I wanted to ask about recruits like Fenrir. I didn't notice that there was one during this arc. How frequent
No.
are these going to be?
There's I think more than a half dozen.
Wow.
So it's not going to be every territory.
Okay.
But I don't want to get the exact number because
Right.
of later plans. But there's at least a half dozen.
Okay.
But not in this arc.
Cool. Gotcha.
Yeah.
So during our first interview, you asked me if I found an Animus anomaly. I didn't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I went out of my way this time to find one, and I did. And while I can't show it, I can describe what I experienced. So essentially, it felt like a way to bridge the gap between modern day and what's happening in the Animus. And it actually brought Layla Hassan into the simulation for what felt like almost, I think it was Brotherhood, had some very similar kind of platforming mechanics where I was trying to find like a data sample or something.
Yeah.
And then
it's a little data packet, and then some craziness happens.
Yes. So the craziness at the end, obviously, to me, that screams the truth puzzles. Can you talk about
that? Was definitely an inspiration. I mean,
Okay.
everything you just said was spot on. Like, we looked back at Brotherhood for the kind of platforming, weird, surreal platforming puzzles within the Animus. It's almost as if the Animus has part of it's been unloaded, or some weird BIOS has been loaded on top of it, or that's not quite the right way to say that, BIOS, but and yes, the truth video was definitely an inspiration. We loved the impact that had. I will say we went above and beyond. I think the truth video for the kind of insane content we have when you finally complete all these. I think people will be picking their eyes off the floor after they see what we have. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Way back, this is something I actually was like sort of pitching or developing during Origins time, but we actually finally got to do this time. I was like, the present day as a story is a very cool thing, but for a lot of people it halts the experience, the main experience, which is I'm progressing as a Viking, or I'm progressing as an assassin, I'm progressing as a pirate, and suddenly I'm taken over to do this other stuff, and none of those learnings, none of those affordances, none of that progression carries over. It's almost like it's a different game. As a story experience, it can be very cool, but as if you're there for gameplay, it can be kind of frustrating. So my pitch years ago was like, can we bring the present day into the Animus, and whatever the avatar, like Eivor or Edward or Ezio has learned, the present day character can do too. Now, this is just version 1.0 of it. I'm sure future teams could take it in different places, but I'm really happy with where we got this. You get to see the beauty of England. You get to platform. You get to solve puzzles in kind of the same way that Eivor would solve puzzles in a wattle and daub hut or a cave or a crypt. But now you're doing it on an Animus layer with present day characters talking all around you, and lots of cool lore, and I'm happy with the way it turned out, and I think there's a lot of room to grow it. I think people will see that when they play it. So it's exciting to have that here in the game. But as I've said also earlier, because I don't want to people to misinterpret, you can actually get out of the Animus in the main game. There are sections outside the Animus as well, but we included these Animus anomalies to bridge that gap, as you said, and I think it works really well. Like there's just it's it's seamless. Let's bring back that word, seamless.
It is though. Yeah, that's absolutely how I would describe it. And I love that you, like you said, I love that you can see England in the background. Like it's gorgeous while I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So
it's fun. We really play with that in some places. Some of the Animus anomalies are on very, very picturesque places that take you so high. And I think this one was one of those, right? You're like far, far above the ground. It's almost like vertigo inducing. Yeah.
It was definitely.
I will say too, because we tell a linear story with these. So it doesn't matter which one you find. You will, the voices you hear, Layla and all that, will be in a specific order. So it's not going to feel confusing. So for people who found the Animus anomaly in the last one, and then they find it in this one, they're going to hear the same dialogue because it's the first one they've found.
Okay.
If you see what I mean.
Yes, I do.
But it will, as you find more, it will actually progress a little, story.
Awesome. Well, fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people will love to hear what you just said. So thanks for the great answer. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. I just want to say good luck on the release and launch of Valhalla. I love your game. I loved what I played, and I can't wait to play the full thing.
Well, I can't wait to watch your video. I just watched your other video on Watch Dogs, and it was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Darby.
Cool. Thank you.
And there it is. I hope you guys enjoyed my full-length interview with narrative director Darby McDevitt. Once again, I wanted to thank him for coming on the channel to talk more about his game. And I wanted to thank the Ubi PR Creator Team for putting this together. It's such an awesome feeling to be able to interview developers and talk about their games. So stay tuned on the channel for more interviews. I've got one with game designer Jessica Maher coming up, and also art director Raphael Lacoste. Some great insights from both of them. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss those. Big thanks to my YouTube members, Grass, David, Kamal, Matthew, Spyro, JVO, John, Lilman, Brock, and Nos for supporting the channel. If you want to support me further, click the join button below this video. In exchange for your support, you'll unlock custom badges and emotes to use in chat. Check the link in the description for more information. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.